The Snow Queen. The Snow Queen is a full-length fairy tale by Danish author HansChristianAndersen, first published in 1837. Europe at that time was immersed in the Romantic era, which placed great value on the beauty of nature, individual emotion, and imagination. Andersen's own childhood experiences of poverty and loneliness are reflected in the story's motifs of children facing hardship and miracles wrought by a pure heart. Set against the harsh Nordic winter landscape and the fantastical ice palace, the tale follows a boy named Kai and a girl named Gerda on a grand adventure. After Kai is struck by shards of a cursed mirror that give him a cold gaze and an icebound heart, Gerda embarks on a journey to rescue him through the power of love and friendship. Themes: 1. The power of love and friendship. In condition, love and steadfast friendship prove stronger than any magic. 2. Redemption through innocence. A true tears can thaw a frozen heart, bringing hope and renewal. 3. Growth through trials. Facing and overcoming challenges leads to courage, kindness, and personal growth. 4. Contrast of cold and warmth. Interplay between an icy world and the warmth of spring highlights the importance of hope. Once upon a time, in a certain land, there lived a most malicious devil. This devil hated humanity and crafted a strange mirror that reflected humans in their ugliest, most repulsive form. Whatever one looked at in that mirror appeared distorted into its most hideous shape. At first, the mirror's shards were few and harmless, but the devil would shatter the mirror again and again into ever smaller pieces, determined to hurl those fragments deep into people's hearts. Whenever a shard lodged in someone's eye, everything they saw became warped, and even the most beloved things appeared repulsive and hateful. Whenever a shard slipped into someone's heart, that gentle heart froze solid, turning as cold and hard as stone. One day, the devil threw the mirror so hard that it smashed into countless fragments. On the wind, the shards scattered across the world, burying themselves in the soil, hiding in the gaps of straw, even clinging to the backs of tiny insects. Before long, one of those fragments drifted northward and landed on the vast snowy plains. Carried on the swirling blizzard, it floated into the home of a boy in a small village. That boy's name was Kai, and he was bright-hearted and kind. On a bitter winter's day, Kai reached out to catch a falling snowflake. Almost without noticing, a tiny shard of the devil's mirror fluttered down and lodged in his eye. In an instant, Kai's gaze clouded over as the fragment sank deeper. From that night onward, Kai began to change. Everything he saw lost its warmth and beauty, becoming harsh, cold, and ugly. Even the morning sun appeared to him as a glaring white blaze, and the darkness of night felt like an endless, freezing black. As the snow piled ever deeper, a white messenger appeared so like the Snow Queen herself that some said it was her very spirit of snowflake. It danced before Kai's house, beckoning him as if to invite him inside. Unconcerned by the bitter cold, Kai followed the spirit along a long path of ice, which led directly to a crystal palace. Its walls were made of transparent ice that fractured the light into shimmering rainbows. "This is my palace," said the Snow Queen, welcoming him. Her voice rang clear and cold enough to chill the air, yet it sounded strangely soothing to his ears. Kai sat silently on the ice-smooth floor. The queen leaned close and whispered, "Come here, I know everything. Let me remove that shard lodged deep in your heart." Kai leaned forward as if to nod, and her pale hand touched his eye. In that instant, his heart froze completely and he did not even notice his own coldness. With that gentle yet icy touch, the queen's magic sealed his heart in everlasting frost. From that moment on, Kai belonged to the Snow Queen. He never returned to his former self, but stood silently in her palace like a living statue of ice. On her journey toward the north, the girl Gerda suddenly came upon a brilliantly colorful flower garden in the midst of the frozen wasteland. Though the surrounding trees had lost all their leaves and the ground lay solidly frozen, this little garden bloomed as if it were spring. At the garden's entrance stood a small hut whose walls and roof were entirely covered in petals, and window boxes overflowed with lilies of the valley and roses. When Gerda gently knocked, a kind voice invited her in, and the door opened by itself. "Please, come inside." Beyond the door, the cold of the outside world vanished, replaced by a gentle warmth and a faint scent of flowers. Petals carpeted the floor, and garlands of lilies of the valley hung like sheer curtains from the ceiling. Seated, there was an elderly woman clad in a loose robe adorned with floral patterns. "Welcome, young traveler. Where have you come from?" The old woman led Gerda to a chair and offered her a cup of hot flower tea. Gerda inhaled its fragrant steam and filled her lungs with the garden's sweet aroma. "I am searching for Kai, who was taken by the Snow Queen." As Gerda began, the old woman gently placed her hand over Gerda's to stop her. "There's no need to hurry. First, rest here in my garden. Drink these dewdrops from the flowers, and your weary heart and body will be eased." With that, the old woman took Gerda's hand and led her deeper into the garden, where wildflowers danced on every side, birds sang, and butterflies fluttered in the air. The scent of roses, the sweet perfume of violets, and the pure aroma of lilies of the valley mingled together, gently thawing Gerda's chilled spirit. "Here, even love and hope cannot freeze. By tomorrow morning, someone will come to help you. For now, let your fatigue melt away and drift into peaceful slumber to the garden's breath." Having spoken these words, the old woman returned to her hut. Gerda lay down upon a bed of petals, and for the first time, dreamed of spring as she fell into a deep sleep. When Gerda rode northward in the Lapland woman's sled, she soon saw before her a splendid palace by an icy lake, bathed in the light of the low-hanging sun. The sled glided over frost-bound marble colonnades, and on either side bloomed flower beds of 100 hues flowers that, unfazed by the cold, seemed to breathe the warmth of spring. Pushing open the door, Gerda entered a vast hall hung with golden lamps, whose soft glow illuminated columns of ice. Waiting there to greet her were a young prince wearing a silver crown and a graceful princess adorned with a small rosary. The princess smiled kindly at Gerda, while the prince, bashful, took a step back. "You're a traveler," the princess said in a gentle voice. "What brings you here?" With a trembling voice, Gerda answered, "I am searching for Kai, who was carried off by the Snow Queen." At those words, the prince and princess exchanged glances, and the princess nodded softly. "Here, both heart and body can rest. Would you like some tea first?" The princess slipped off her white gloves, took Gerda's hand, and led her to a seat by a large window. On the table lay freshly baked bread, fruit, and fragrant floral tea whose aroma filled the room. Gerda sipped the tea and felt the weariness of her journey melting away. "Try on this ring," the prince said, gently offering a small gold ring. Though hesitant, Gerda took it and slipped it onto her finger. At once, a faint song drifted into her mind, and her eyelids grew heavy. Smiling tenderly, the princess laid Gerda down on the carpet and covered her with a warm blanket. "Rest well. In dreams, you can find anything you wish," the princess whispered as her voice faded, and Gerda slipped into a deep sleep. Late that night, a tiny hare slipped quietly through the bedroom door. With the nimbleness of a rodent, it crept to Gerda's side and nibbled away the ring. No sooner had the ring fallen from her finger than Gerda's eyes fluttered open, freed from the ring's enchantment. Rubbing her eyes, Gerda rose and thanked the prince and princess from her heart. Once more, she set out on her journey to find Kai. The princess pointed toward the flower beds visible beyond the window and said, "Please don't forget your time here. Even on the hardest path, the memory of these blossoms will sustain you." Gerda nodded. Passing through the icy colonnade, she stepped again into the frozen darkness of the north. Gerda crossed the frozen snowfields and entered the desolate wilderness of Lapland. An endless expanse of ice stretched before her, with not a single flower in sight. The wind howled, whipping snowflakes against her cheeks. Yet, far off on the horizon, Gerda spotted tiny glimmers of red, yellow, and purple. Those unnatural flashes of color proved to be the roof ornament of a sturdy little hut, crafted from a cluster of wildflowers. Both roof and walls were covered in blossoms, and before the single door bloomed a red rose that braved the biting wind and frozen ground. Gerda hesitated, then knocked softly. A gentle voice answered from within, "Please, come inside." Stepping through the door, she left the frigid air behind and found herself enveloped in a faint warmth. Petals lined the interior walls, and clusters of lilies of the valley hung like garlands from the ceiling, filling the air with their delicate fragrance. As Gerda advanced, an elderly woman emerged, her fur-trimmed cloak sweeping the floor. "You've come a long way, young traveler. First, have some tea." From a small round table, the old woman poured a richly colored juice into a cup. When Gerda sipped it, she found it sweet, with a comforting warmth that spread through her heart. "What brings you on your journey?" the woman asked. With a trembling voice, Gerda replied, "I seek Kai, who is taken by the Snow Queen. I wish to save him." The old woman nodded thoughtfully and rose to stand by the window. Gazing out over the snowy plain, she said, "I haven't seen Kai myself, but I know his heart is frozen by a shard of that cursed mirror. If you travel farther north, you will come to the home of a powerful sorceress known as the Finnish woman. She will surely help you." Returning to Gerda's side, the old woman spread a soft fur rug on the floor. "Rest here tonight. Tomorrow morning, I will send you on your way to Finland in my sled." Obeying her, Gerda sat on the rug. Her eyelids grew heavy as the old woman's warm hands stroked her hair, and a lullaby-like voice drifted into her ears. In that unlikely oasis of comfort amid the tundra's desolation, Gerda fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. At last, the sled came to a halt before the shimmering walls of ice that stretched beyond the horizon. A towering gate of transparent ice reflected rainbow hues in dazzling brilliance. With a groan, the gate swung open and invited Gerda into the vast ice palace. The great hall was roofed by a single sheet of ice, and the columns branched like crystalline trees. Thousands of ice flowers floated on the walls, and the floor was paved with tiles shaped like snowflakes. The northern lights danced across the ceiling, shifting their colors as if the palace itself were alive. Deep within the palace, Gerda beheld the Snow Queen seated on her icy throne. Her long, silvery hair cascaded down her back, and her pure white gown sparkled like frost. Her eyes were a limpid blue, cold and clear as a midnight sea. "Welcome, child of travel." The Snow Queen's voice was low and pure, echoing softly through the frozen hall. "Kai is here, but his heart belongs to me. No matter how small your hand, you cannot free him." Gerda stood trembling, gazing up at the queen, yet within her burned an undying flame of resolve. The queen snapped her fingers, and a swirl of icy snow rose, sweeping through every corner of the palace. Then a petite, knight-like attendant appeared and gently took Kai's hand, leading him to stand beside the throne. Kai's lips were cold and silent, his eyes fixed on some distant point. Gerda could not look away for a single moment. "If you wish to save him, you must undergo a small trial here," the Snow Queen said, with a mysterious smile. "Only one who can melt the ice of this palace may reclaim Kai's heart." Gerda drew a deep breath and answered in a trembling voice, "I will endure. Even if I freeze myself, I will bring Kai home." The queen spread her arms wide, and countless ice crystals drifted down from her raised fingertips. They spiraled around Gerda, forming a labyrinth of ice. Stealing her courage, Gerda took a single step forward. "Very well. Then shed one drop of true tear here. That shall be the key to melting the ice." As the queen's words fell, the ice labyrinth glowed colder and deeper. Gently touching Kai's cheek, Gerda remembered the warmth of his heart and waited as a tear formed in her eye. At last, a single tear fell onto the frozen floor. It glowed a brilliant red and then slowly began to melt. With a thunderous crack that echoed through the palace, the ice maze shattered, and the frozen lock around Kai's heart softened and dissolved. The palace was bathed in a gentle light, and the northern lights swayed tenderly overhead. The queen rose from her icy throne, her smile now gentle and warm. Your true tear has shattered the strongest magic. Kai is yours, and you are his. And so, having triumphed over the frozen trial, Gerda and Kai clasped hands and departed the ice palace together. The gates closed behind them, and soft spring sunlight fell upon them as they stepped into freedom. As the palace's ice shattered and Kai's frozen heart felt the warmth of spring, the Snow Queen rose from her throne. In her eyes blazed the red glow of that single true tear and the vision of her palace crumbling by its power. So this tear has broken the pact of my magic, the Snow Queen said quietly. Her voice, no longer imbued with its former chill, carried a hint of gentleness. She looked down at Kai and Gerda standing by the throne and nodded. Kai, your heart is mine no more. Gerda's true tear has freed you from the icy bonds. Now you are both free. My only wish is to witness your happiness. With that, the Snow Queen swept the hem of her white gown aside and opened her arms. The ice walls silently receded, and the palace gates swung open under the spring sunlight. The polar wind breezed through, and warm daylight flooded the glassy floor. Pressing a finger to her lips, the queen smiled and beckoned them forward. Go now. You have no reason to remain here. Your true home is the world of warmth and love among humankind. Gerda clasped Kai's hand tightly and bowed her head. Kai, feeling color and life return to the world, nodded in deep gratitude. Hand in hand, they passed through the ice gates, stepping into the gentle spring light, while the Snow Queen watched, her smile serene. And so, Gerda's true tear shattered the strongest of magics, rescued Kai from his icy curse, and guided them both back to the human world. As the spring sun began to warm the earth, Gerda and Kai departed the Snow Queen's palace and set out once more on their long journey. No trace remained of the shattered ice maze. Beyond the gates lay land sprouting fresh green growth. Kai felt the warm breeze on his formerly frozen cheeks and squinted as he gazed into the distance. He saw the forests and flower gardens he had passed, the little fishing village and the lake, all revived by the coming of spring. Gerda gently squeezed his hand, and they exchanged smiles. You'll be fine now, Kai. Everyone must be so worried, Gerda said. Kai nodded slowly and for the first time, broke into a true, heartfelt smile. They crossed the snowfields and the woods, and at last arrived at Kai's home village. Familiar houses and roadside wildflowers greeted them as the villagers, astonished and overjoyed, gathered around. Kai's mother burst into tears when she recognized her son, and Gerda was enfolded in a warm embrace. Kai, is it really you? Mother, I'm home, Kai replied. Their voices, carried on the spring breeze, echoed throughout the village. That night, the village square hosted a humble celebration. Tables adorned with flowers and fresh leaves groaned under colorful fruits, bread, and cheese as villagers sang and danced. Hand in hand, Gerda and Kai stood in the circle of their loved ones, gazing up at the starry sky with happiness in their hearts. The tale of the Snow Queen's trials and Gerda's true tear became the talk of the village and in time passed down as a symbol of children's dreams and hope. As spring unfolded anew, Gerda and Kai lived out gentle days filled with the deep knowledge of love's and friendship's enduring power. Thank you for watching.